Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of notable people in North Texas. My guest today is Mark Glover, a longtime Flower Mound resident who has volunteered his time and energy to the community for many years. Thank you for being here, Mark.
Good to be here, Bob.
If you would please give our viewers some background information such as your education, occupation, etc.
Okay, my wife Penny and I are natives to the area. We're both Louisville High School graduates, dated a little bit in high school, but went our separate ways after graduation. I went on to get my undergraduate degree at Texas A&M Commerce, and then went to Texas Tech to get my MBA. Our company is iMark Realty Advisors. For over 30 years, I've helped clients to buy, sell, lease, develop, and invest in commercial real estate.
Well, you're currently developing Prairie Commons in town. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Prairie Commons is a commercial development, 7 buildings. We have 5 office condominiums for sale, and then we have 2 buildings that have office and retail space for lease. It's a sustainable, low-impact development featuring native plants and grasses, rainwater harvesting. We have some solar, rain gardens, pollinator gardens, and something of real interest is we have some historic art murals on the building. The biggest are like 32 foot by almost 20 foot tall, and these art murals will essentially tell the story of the prairies in and around Flower Mound.
Wow, how nice is that? Tell us, where is it located, Prairie Commons?
It's located south and east of 1171 and 2499. Yucca is on one side, Churchill to the north, and we have approximately 4.75 acres with the entire site. We hope to move in our first tenants, which is Camp Bow Wow, in November 1st of this year.
Is that,
So it's moving along.
is moving along, and is that a time it will be finished?
That'll be a time that their space will be finished. They do a tremendous amount of business between Thanksgiving and New Year's, so we want to get them open.
Great. Now, I know that you're very involved in speaking about the history of Flower Mound, and you've given many talks in the area, so do you want to tell us something about that? And also, you're going to be speaking at the Seniors in Motion facility later this month, right?
I am. A lot of people don't know, but Flower Mound really has a rich history and heritage. I inherited a lot of the old stories and some artifacts from my father-in-law and some other people, Bob Rudisill. And several years ago, the town asked me to put a history presentation together for one of the banquets, actually the volunteer banquet, which I did. And since then, I've had an opportunity to add to that presentation and present it to a lot of groups around Flower Mound. On August 22nd, I'm presenting it to the Seniors in Motion at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. And I'm sure it's open if anybody would love to come hear it.
Oh, sure, yeah. You also serve on the Flower Mound Foundation Board. Tell us about that.
Well, the Flower Mound is owned by the Flower Mound Foundation. The Flower Mound is a 12-acre blackland prairie, which is a rare find, a real treasure these days. Only 0.5% of our original blackland prairies still exist today. The mission at the foundation is to preserve the original character of the mound and advance works with science and history. So one of the real interesting things that we were able to do through the Flower Mound Foundation is we took a lead role in preserving the log cabin that was recently discovered on the west end of town.
Oh, that's right, the cabin that was inside of a house, and the outside was taken out, and now you have the cabin?
Yes,
Right.
and we're working with Denton County and the town of Flower Mound
Wow, that's
to
great.
renovate that cabin and leave something important for our children and grandchildren.
It's so great to recognize the history. When you talk about history, you talk about going back Flower Mound a long time, like hundreds of years ago, right?
The history presentation as it stands, like I say, I built it up through the years.
Yeah.
It starts 100 million years ago when Texas was underwater.
Wow.
And really the oceans receded, leaving Flower Mound on the Gulf of Mexico, which I like to call the Gulf of Flower Mound.
Wow.
And of course we had dinosaurs running up and down the shores. But I quickly advanced through that presentation and moved to the 1950s to 1970s, which I think are some of the most interesting times in Flower Mound, and I call that period Fabulous Flower Mound.
Fabulous Flower Mound. Then there is the Capital Improvement Advisory Council and the Smart Growth Commission in Flower Mound. You remember both of those, right?
I'm a member of both of those. All of the planning and zoning members are also on that. And we have a member from the development community and a member from the real estate community. I serve as the development community member. And the Capital Improvements Committee really recommends issues with water and roads and wastewater. The smart growth really looks at whether the town is adhering to the principles of smart growth.
Now, I also want to mention to our viewers that you're married to the former Penny Rudisill, whose father, Bob Rudisill, was the town's first mayor. And you speak about that as part of your talks as well, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of old photographs that I've inherited through the years. So it's a very interesting presentation.
And I remember Bob Rudisill well. He and I used to get together and talk about some of the history in Flower Mound, and we talk sometimes in meetings at the council room. So anyway, you and Penny enjoy gardening, chicken breeding, beekeeping, and raising Labrador retrievers on your 2 3/4 acre hobby farm called Rudisill Farms.
Yes.
Wow.
We really enjoy it. I actually have my office 100 feet behind the house, so we really enjoy our. It's like being in the country where we're at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's some organic living.
Yes.
That's really great. And do you sell anything from there? I mean, do you?
We don't. Someday we may,
Yeah.
but we give away all the eggs to the kids and friends.
That's
and,
wonderful.
And
Yeah.
eat a lot of them. And,
Fresh eggs. Wow.
Just enjoy knowing where food comes from.
And beekeeping.
Yes.
That's got to be interesting, right?
It's a very interesting hobby. There's a lot to know about bees. They are really complex little creatures.
And what would agriculture be without them?
That's right.
Right.
We would lose. Some people say we couldn't exist without bees, and we've had a real problem in recent years, losing about 1/3 of the bee populations.
That's amazing. Well, you sure do a lot over there. I understand that you also have an aunt who lives with you, and she's about to celebrate her 105th birthday.
Well, she's got a few months. April's her 105th. Aunt Faye was always my favorite aunt when I was growing up. She's my dad's sister. Penny has loved her for years and years. And she had a stroke and a fall a few years ago. Actually lived by herself till she was 100 years old and gardened and everything else. But she had her times told on her, and she had an accident. We were able to get her out of the nursing home, bring her home, with everybody thinking that she didn't have much time. And we've had her about 2.5 years.
Oh,
but
boy.
she's
How
a
wonderful.
real joy.
Well, God bless
have.
her. That's
Yes.
that's wonderful. I always like to hear those stories. There's so much. You're an interesting guy, Mark. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. Number one, I want to thank you for doing this. I've watched many of these interviews, and it helps bring this community together. And the last thing I'd like to say is to all of our new people out there, I want to welcome you to Flower Mound as long as you welcome the next to come. And I get that quote from Bob Rudisill.
Good for you.
And
Good
would
for
like
you.
to
That's
leave you
just
with
that's just what Bob would have said.
Yes.
And I thank you so much for being here, Mark, and for everything you do for the community. Really,
Thank you.
A real pleasure. And thank you for watching. How do we do?